r/AITA for revoking my stepson's trust fund after he called me pathetic. The words hit me like a slap across the face at my own dinner table. You're pathetic, David. You think throwing money at us makes you our family? You're just some sad old man trying to buy his way in where he doesn't belong. The entire dining room went silent. My fork clattered against the china plate as I set it down, my hand trembling with a rage I hadn't felt in years. Around the table, my wife Sarah's extended family stared at us, her parents, her sister, her brother-in-law, all witnesses to my 19-year-old stepson Tyler's verbal assassination of everything I tried to build over the past 3 years. Tyler, apologize right now, Sarah hissed, her face flushed crimson with embarrassment. But Tyler just leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, that smug expression I'd grown to hate plastered across his face. Why? For telling the truth. He's not my dad. He never will be. And everyone at this table knows it. 3 years. 3 goddamn years I'd spent trying to win this kid over. When I married Sarah, I knew it wouldn't be easy. Tyler was 16 then, angry about his parents' divorce, hostile toward any man who dared step into his father's place. But I was patient. I took him to baseball games even though he barely spoke to me. I helped him with homework while he rolled his eyes. I set up that trust fund, $150,000, as a gesture of good faith, to show him I was committed to being part of his life for the long haul. I'd even managed his college application process when his biological father couldn't be bothered to help. Spent hours on the phone with admissions counselors, wrote recommendation letters, paid for test prep courses. And when Tyler got into state, I was genuinely proud. I thought we were making progress. But the phone call from his academic advisor last week shattered that illusion. Tyler was failing 3 classes, hadn't attended lectures in weeks, and was reportedly spending most of his time at fraternity parties. When Sarah and I confronted him about it during dessert tonight, asking him to take his education seriously, this was his response. You don't get to lecture me about responsibility, Tyler continued, his voice getting louder. You're not my father. You're just some lonely businessman who swooped in and married my mom because you couldn't get a woman your own age. Sarah's mother gasped. Her father cleared his throat uncomfortably. The silence stretched on for what felt like hours but was probably only seconds. I stood up slowly, pulling my phone from my pocket. My hands were steadier now, my mind crystal clear with purpose. Excuse me for just a moment, I said quietly, my voice barely above a whisper. I need to make a phone call. David, don't, Sarah started, but I was already walking toward my study. I scrolled through my contacts until I found my attorney's number. Marcus picked up on a second ring. David? Everything all right? It's pretty late. I need you to draft papers first thing Monday morning, I said, closing the study door behind me. I want Tyler Morrison removed as beneficiary from the trust fund we established. Complete revocation. And remove him from my will entirely. Whoa, slow down. What happened? Through the door, I could hear raised voices, Sarah arguing with Tyler, her family members chiming in with their opinions. 3 years of careful relationship building crumbling in real time. What happened, I said, sinking into my leather desk chair, is that I finally got an honest answer about where I stand in this family. David, you need to think about this carefully, Marcus said, his lawyer voice kicking in. Trust fund revocations can get messy, especially in blended families. Are you sure you want to make this decision while you're angry? I've never been more sure of anything in my life, I replied, watching through the study window as snow began to fall on the perfectly manicured lawn I'd spent a fortune landscaping. The kid made his position crystal clear. I'm just a wallet to him. Fine. The wallet is now closed. What about Sarah? Have you discussed this with her? Before I could answer, my study door burst open. Sarah stood there, tears streaming down her face, still wearing the red dress she'd picked out specially for tonight's family dinner. Behind her, I could see her mother hovering in the hallway, wringing her hands. Hang up the phone, David. Please. I held up one finger. Marcus, I'll call you first thing Monday. Draw up whatever papers you need. I ended the call and faced my wife. How could you? Sarah's voice cracked. How could you make that call without even talking to me first? The same way your son just humiliated me in front of your entire family without talking to you first, I shot back. Apparently, we're all just making unilateral decisions tonight. Sarah stepped into the study and closed the door behind her. In the muffled distance, I could hear Tyler's voice, probably holding court about what a bastard I was. Her father's deeper tones rumbled in response. He's 19, David. 19-year-olds say stupid things when they're cornered. You can't destroy his future over one moment of anger. One moment. I laughed bitterly. Sarah, this has been building for 3 years. Every family photo where he stands as far away from me as possible. Every birthday where he thanks you for gifts we both picked out, like I don't exist. Every school event where he introduces you as his mom and me as David. Just David. She sank into the chair across from my desk, the same chair where Tyler used to sit, reluctantly, when I helped him with college applications. You knew this would be hard when you married me. You said you were prepared for it. I was prepared for hard, Sarah. I wasn't prepared for cruelty. I pulled up my banking app on my phone and showed her the screen. Do you know how much I've spent on that boy in 3 years? The trust fund, college tuition, his car, spring break trips with his friends, the laptop, the clothes, the insurance. So it was about the money. Tyler was right. The accusation hit harder than Tyler's words had. I set my phone down carefully, fighting the urge to throw it across the room. No, it was never about the money. The money was supposed to show commitment. Investment in his future. Proof that I wasn't going anywhere. I met her eyes. But apparently, all it proved was that I'm a fool. From the dining room came the sound of chairs scraping against hardwood floors. Sarah's family was probably getting ready to leave, their holiday evening thoroughly ruined. Perfect. He's going to lose everything, David. His college fund, his security. What if something happens to you? What if something happens to me? Then he can call his biological father for help. You know, his real family. Sarah flinched like I'd slapped her. Don't do this. Please. We can fix this. We can all sit down tomorrow and work through it. I opened my laptop and began typing an email to my accountant. There's nothing left to fix, Sarah. Your son made sure of that tonight. I hit send on the email to my accountant, the soft whoosh sound feeling like a door slamming shut. Sarah was still sitting across from me, mascara streaking down her cheeks, but I couldn't bring myself to care anymore. 3 years of caring had gotten me exactly nowhere. You're going to regret this, she whispered. When you calm down, when you think rationally. I am thinking rationally. I closed the laptop with more force than necessary. For the first time in 3 years, I'm seeing this situation clearly. Your son just told a room full of people that I'm pathetic, that I'm trying to buy my way into a family that doesn't want me. Well, message received. The study door opened again, and Tyler himself appeared. He'd lost some of his earlier bravado, his arms weren't crossed anymore, and there was something uncertain in his eyes. Behind him, I could see Sarah's parents putting on their coats, her sister gathering her purse. The evening was officially over. Mom says you called your lawyer, Tyler said, trying to sound defiant but not quite managing it. Your mother is correct. I stood up, straightening my tie. Congratulations, Tyler. You finally got what you wanted. No more pathetic David trying to buy his way into your life. I didn't mean, he stopped himself, jaw clenching. Look, maybe I got carried away, but you can't just. Can't what? Can't revoke a gift I gave freely. Can't protect myself from further humiliation. I walked around the desk until I was standing directly in front of him. You're 19 years old, Tyler. Old enough to vote, old enough to drink in most countries, old enough to understand that actions have consequences. Sarah shot up from her chair. David, stop. You're both upset. Let's just. No. Tyler's voice was louder now, that familiar anger returning. Let him show everyone who he really is. You see, Mom. The second he doesn't get the worship he thinks he deserves, he takes his ball and goes home. The kid had no idea how close he was to crossing a line I wouldn't be able to uncross. Worship. I never wanted worship, Tyler. I wanted basic human decency. I wanted to be treated like a member of this family instead of an ATM with legs. You want to be treated like family? Then act like it. Real family doesn't threaten to cut you off the second you hurt their feelings. Real family also doesn't publicly humiliate each other at holiday dinners. From the hallway came Sarah's mother's voice. Sarah, dear, maybe we should go. Let everyone cool down. No, wait, Tyler called out, pushing past me toward the hallway. Don't leave because of him. This is Mom's house too. Actually, it wasn't. The house was in my name, bought with my money, furnished with my credit cards. But pointing that out would only prove Tyler's point about everything being transactional. The irony wasn't lost on me. Sarah grabbed my arm. Please don't do this tonight. Sleep on it. Give it a week. If you still feel the same way, I'll feel the same way. I gently removed her hand from my arm. Sarah, I love you. I've loved you since our second date when you told me about Tyler, when you warned me how hard this might be. I thought love would be enough. I thought patience and consistency and yes, financial support, would eventually win him over. I was wrong. Through the doorway, I watched Tyler explaining something to his grandmother, probably painting me as the villain in this story. Maybe I was the villain. Maybe cutting off a 19-year-old's trust fund made me exactly as petty as he'd accused me of being. But I was tired of being the bigger person. Tired of turning the other cheek. Tired of loving people who saw my affection as weakness and my generosity as manipulation. The papers will be ready Monday, I said quietly. After that, Tyler gets what he's always wanted. He never has to pretend I matter again. Sarah's family finally left around 11, the house falling into an uncomfortable silence that felt heavier than the earlier shouting. I'd retreated to my home office, but I could hear Tyler pacing in his room upstairs, the same room I'd helped him redecorate when they first moved in, complete with a gaming setup that cost more than most people's cars. The irony tasted bitter. Sarah appeared in my doorway with 2 cups of coffee, a peace offering I wasn't sure I wanted to accept. Tyler's upstairs crying, she said, setting 1 cup on my desk. He's scared, David. Really scared. He should be. She settled into the chair across from me, the same spot where we used to plan family vacations that Tyler would spend sulking through. My sister thinks I should take him and stay at her place for a few days. Give you space to cool down. Something cold settled in my chest. Is that what you want to do? I want my family to stop falling apart. Sarah's voice broke slightly. I want my husband and my son to find a way to coexist without destroying each other. Your son made it clear tonight that we're not family. That we never were. So you're going to prove him right by abandoning him? The accusation stung because part of me wondered if she wasn't wrong. But I was tired of being the only adult in the room, tired of making excuses for a kid who seemed determined to hate me regardless of what I did. I'm not abandoning anyone. I'm simply stopping the charade that I'm wanted here. I pulled up my email and showed her the response from my accountant. Gerald's already started the paperwork. The trust fund dissolution should be complete by Wednesday. Sarah read the email, her face growing paler. David, that money was supposed to cover his senior year. Room and board, his meal plan, everything. What's he supposed to do? Figure it out. Like most college students do. I knew I sounded heartless, but the alternative was admitting that I'd already considered this, that the thought of Tyler struggling financially made my stomach twist with guilt. He's got scholarships. He can get a job. Take out loans like everyone else. He'll have to drop out. You know his grades aren't good enough to keep those scholarships without the tutoring we pay for, and he can't work enough hours to cover expenses and still maintain a full course load. She was right, and we both knew it. Tyler would probably have to take a semester off, maybe a full year, to work and save money. His friends would graduate without him. His entire life plan would derail. Good, the angry part of me thought. Maybe some real consequences would teach him respect. But another part of me, the part that had genuinely grown to care about the sullen teenager who'd become my stepson, felt sick. Maybe his father can help, I said, knowing even as I spoke how unlikely that was. Sarah's ex-husband was 3 months behind on child support and living in a studio apartment across the country. David. Sarah leaned forward, her coffee untouched. I know you're hurt. I know tonight was awful. But Tyler's been acting out more lately because he's scared. Scared of what? Of caring about you. Of what happens if this marriage doesn't work out. She met my eyes. His father promised him the world and then disappeared. Every man I dated after the divorce, Tyler would start to warm up to them, and then they'd decide that dating a single mom was too complicated. I'm not them. Prove it. The challenge hung between us like a gauntlet thrown down. Upstairs, Tyler's pacing had stopped. The house felt like it was holding its breath, waiting to see which direction this would go. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Asterisk papers will be ready Monday morning. You sure about this? Asterisk. I stared at the message, my finger hovering over the reply button. I didn't reply to Marcus's text. Instead, I set the phone face down on my desk and looked at my wife, really looked at her. Sarah's makeup had smudged under her eyes, and she was still wearing the red dress she'd picked out specially for tonight's dinner. The dress I'd complimented her on before everything went to hell. You want me to prove I'm not like the others? I said. Sarah, I've been proving that for 3 years. I've been to every parent-teacher conference, every soccer game Tyler bothered to show up for. I taught him to drive when his own father couldn't be bothered to fly out for it. I've eaten more awkward family dinners in silence than I care to count. And you've held it over his head every single time things got difficult. The accusation hit like a physical blow. That's not true. Isn't it? After everything I've done for you. The respect I deserve. David, you sound exactly like my ex-husband when he'd get angry about child support payments. I stood up so quickly my chair rolled backward into the bookshelf. Don't you dare compare me to that deadbeat. Then stop acting like your love comes with a price tag. Before I could respond, footsteps thundered down the stairs. Tyler appeared in the doorway, still in his dinner clothes but disheveled, his face red and blotchy. He'd definitely been crying, though he was trying to hide it. I called Grandpa, he announced, his voice thick. He's coming to pick me up. Sarah's face went white. Tyler, no. It's midnight. He's already in his car. Tyler's grandfather lived 45 minutes away and had to be pushing 75. The roads were still slick from yesterday's rain. I'm not staying here with him. Your grandfather shouldn't be driving this late, I said, already reaching for my keys. I'll come get you if you want to leave that badly. Tyler laughed, but there was no humor in it. Right. So you can lecture me about gratitude the whole way there? No thanks. So what's your plan? Sarah stood up, moving between us like a referee. You're going to live with my father permanently. Drop out of school completely. Maybe. At least Grandpa doesn't make me feel like I have to earn basic human decency. The words stung because they weren't entirely untrue. I had kept score, maybe not consciously, but I'd definitely cataloged every rejection, every eye roll, every time Tyler had chosen his phone over conversation at dinner. My phone rang. Sarah's father. David? Is Tyler all right? He called upset, said he needed to be picked up immediately. I could hear the concern in the older man's voice, and guilt twisted in my stomach. Frank was a good man, but he had a heart condition and had no business driving mountain roads at midnight. Frank, let me come get him. You don't need to. I'm already halfway there. The connection crackled as he hit a dead zone. This is what family does, David. We show up for each other, no conditions attached. Another dig. Apparently everyone had an opinion about my parenting tonight. Tyler grabbed his jacket from the coat closet. 10 minutes, he told his mother. I'll text when I get there safe. Tyler, please. Mom, stop. This isn't working. It never was going to work. He looked directly at me for the first time since entering my office. You want to cut me off? Fine. But don't pretend it's about respect. This is about control, and we both know it. He walked out, leaving Sarah and me staring at each other across the wreckage of our family. Outside, headlights swept across our front windows as Frank's old Buick pulled into the driveway. I watched through the window as Tyler threw his hastily packed duffel bag into Frank's back seat. The old man got out of the car, moving slower than usual, and I could see him gesturing for Tyler to calm down. Even from a distance, Frank looked exhausted. I should go talk to him, Sarah said, but she didn't move from where she stood. Which him? I asked, though I already knew the answer. It would be Tyler. It was always Tyler. She shot me a look that could have cut glass. My father just drove 45 minutes on dangerous roads because his grandson was in crisis. The least we can do is... A knock at the front door interrupted her. Frank's knock, 3 sharp raps followed by 2 softer ones, the same pattern he'd used since I'd known him. Sarah rushed to answer it, leaving me standing in my office doorway like a stranger in my own house. Sarah, honey. Frank's voice carried the weight of disappointment as he hugged his daughter. What happened here tonight? Dad, you didn't have to come. David could have. David. Frank nodded at me, polite but noticeably cooler than usual. In 3 years, he'd never used that tone with me. Tyler says you've cut off his college funding. Frank, it's complicated. Is it? The older man looked genuinely puzzled. Because from where I'm standing, it looks pretty simple. You got your feelings hurt, so you decided to punish a 19-year-old boy. Heat flashed through me. With respect, Frank, you weren't there. You didn't hear what he said. No, but I heard what he's saying now. And I'm looking at a kid who's scared and hurt and convinced that the only father figure he's had in years just proved every abandonment fear he's ever had. I'm not abandoning him. I'm setting boundaries. Frank studied me for a long moment. You know, when Sarah first started dating you, Tyler came to me. Asked if I thought you were going to stick around this time. Sarah's face went pale. Dad, don't. No, he needs to hear this. Frank's attention never wavered from me. That boy has been waiting for 3 years for the other shoe to drop. Every time things got good between you two, he'd pull back because he was terrified of getting hurt again. So he decided to hurt me first, I said. Very mature. He's 19, David. You're 45. Which one of you is supposed to be the adult here? Before I could answer, my phone rang. Marcus again. I almost declined the call, but something made me answer. David, we have a problem. Marcus sounded tense. I did some digging on the trust dissolution, and there's an issue with the tax implications. If you revoke it now, Tyler gets hit with a massive tax bill on funds he's already spent for this semester. We're talking potentially $20,000 he doesn't have. My stomach dropped. What do you mean, already spent? Tuition, room and board, meal plans, it's all paid through the trust. If you dissolve it, the IRS considers those retroactive gifts above the annual exclusion limit. He'll owe taxes on money he never actually possessed. Frank was watching my face, reading my expression. More complications, he asked quietly. Sarah grabbed my arm. David, what is it? I closed my eyes, feeling the weight of unintended consequences crushing down on me. In my anger, in my hurt, I hadn't considered the legal ramifications. Tyler wouldn't just lose his funding, he'd be buried in debt to the federal government. I need to call you back, Marcus, I said, ending the call. Frank nodded slowly, like he'd expected something exactly like this. Turns out family's messier than business contracts, doesn't it? Outside, Tyler sat in the passenger seat of Frank's Buick, staring at our house through the windshield. Waiting to see what the adults would decide about his future. I walked outside, my bare feet hitting the cold driveway pavement. Tyler didn't look at me as I approached Frank's car, but I could see his shoulders tense. Tyler. I knocked on the passenger window. We need to talk about the tax situation. He rolled down the window halfway, his face a mask of stubborn defiance. What tax situation? If I dissolve the trust now, you'll owe the IRS around $20,000 on money you've already spent for school. Money you don't have. For the first time tonight, I saw genuine fear flicker across his face. What do you mean? Frank leaned across the center console. David, explain this properly. I crouched down to window level, trying to keep my voice steady. The trust paid your tuition directly. If I revoke it, legally speaking, that becomes a gift that exceeds federal limits. You'll owe taxes on it. But I never even saw that money. Doesn't matter to the IRS. I ran a hand through my hair. Tyler, I was angry. I made this decision too quickly. So now you're keeping the trust fund because you feel sorry for me. His voice cracked. That's even worse. That's not what I'm saying. Then what are you saying? Tyler's eyes were bright with unshed tears again. Because I'm tired of trying to figure out what you want from me. Frank cleared his throat. Maybe we should all go inside and discuss this like adults. No. Tyler's voice was firm. I'm not going back in that house tonight. Grandpa, can we just go? Tyler, please, Sarah had followed me outside, wrapping her robe tighter against the cold. Mom, don't. You heard him earlier. I'm ungrateful, disrespectful, everything that's wrong with kids today. Tyler looked directly at me. You want to know why I called you pathetic? It's not because of the money. It's because you keep pretending this is about respect when really it's about winning. That's not true. Isn't it? Every conversation we have, you're keeping score. Every time I mess up, you get this look on your face like you're thinking, I knew it. Like you're just waiting for me to prove you right about something. Frank shifted the car into park and turned off the engine. Nobody's going anywhere until we sort this out. Tyler, what do you need from David? And David, what do you need from Tyler? Real talk. The question hung in the cold air between us. What did I need? Gratitude? Respect? Love? All of it seemed suddenly petty and transactional. I need to know that I matter to you, I said finally. Not the money, not what I can provide. Me. Tyler stared at me for a long moment. You think I don't care about you? I think you care about what I represent. Stability for your mom. College tuition. But me? I honestly don't know. Jesus. Tyler scrubbed his face with his hands. You really don't get it, do you? Get what? Why do you think I get so angry when you try to parent me? It's not because I don't respect you. It's because I do, and that scares the hell out of me. Sarah's breath caught audibly. My real dad bailed when things got tough, Tyler continued. And every time you start caring about my grades or my future or whatever, I keep thinking, what happens when I disappoint you too much? When I'm not worth the investment anymore. So tonight I decided to find out. Tyler's voice was barely a whisper. And you proved me right, didn't you? The accusation hit harder than anything he'd said at dinner. Because he wasn't wrong. The moment things got truly difficult, I'd reached for the nuclear option. Tyler, save it. He turned to Frank. Can we go now, Grandpa? Please. Frank looked between Tyler, Sarah, and me, his expression grave. This family is broken, and it's going to take more than one conversation to fix it. Frank's words hung in the air like a verdict. My phone buzzed again, another text from Marcus with details about the tax implications I'd stupidly overlooked in my rage. $23,000, to be exact. Tyler would owe $23,000 to the federal government because of my wounded pride. David. Sarah's voice was barely above a whisper. We need to fix this. But Tyler was already shaking his head. There's nothing to fix, Mom. He showed me exactly who he is tonight. The only reason he's backtracking now is because his lawyer found a loophole that makes him look bad. That's not, I started, but Frank held up a hand. Tyler, come inside for 5 minutes. Not for David, not for your mother. For me. The old man's voice carried an authority I'd never heard before. 5 minutes, and then I'll take you wherever you want to go. Tyler reluctantly climbed out of the car, but he wouldn't look at me. We walked back into the house like a funeral procession, silent, tense, everyone afraid of what came next. Frank settled into my leather recliner like he owned it. Sarah, make some coffee. David, sit down and keep your mouth shut for now. Tyler, you sit too. I wanted to object to being ordered around in my own home, but something in Frank's expression warned me not to test him tonight. Tyler, Frank began once we were all seated, tell me about last semester. Your real grades, not the sanitized version. Tyler's jaw tightened. Why does it matter? Because I think there's more going on here than anyone's admitting. Frank's eyes were sharp despite his 73 years. I didn't raise your mother to be naive, and she didn't raise you to be cruel. So what's really happening? For a long moment, Tyler stared at the carpet. Then, so quietly I almost missed it, I'm failing calculus. And chemistry. Sarah dropped the coffee mug she'd been holding. It shattered against the kitchen floor, ceramic pieces scattering like my carefully constructed family. How badly? I asked, despite Frank's warning to stay quiet. Tyler finally looked at me, and I saw something I'd missed before, shame. Deep, crushing shame. I might not pass either class. Which means I might not get into the engineering program. Jesus, Tyler, why didn't you say something? Sarah was picking up pieces of the broken mug, her hands shaking. Because look what happened tonight when David found out I got a C in economics. Tyler's voice cracked. What do you think he'd do if he knew I was actually failing? Frank leaned forward. How long have you been struggling? Since October. Maybe September. Tyler's composure was crumbling. I kept thinking I could fix it myself. I got tutoring, I've been studying every night, but it's not enough. I'm not smart enough. That's not true, Sarah said automatically. Isn't it? David's this successful businessman, you're a nurse, and I can't even handle freshman calculus. Maybe community college is where I belong after all. The pieces were falling into place, creating a picture that made my chest tight. Tyler hadn't been partying excessively, he'd been hiding academic failure. The attitude, the defensiveness, the lashing out tonight, it was all covering up his fear that he wasn't good enough. My phone rang again. Marcus, probably with more dire financial consequences I hadn't considered. I declined the call. Tyler, I said carefully, how much tutoring have you been getting? 3 times a week. Sometimes 4. He wouldn't meet my eyes. I've spent almost all my personal allowance on it. Frank made a sound that might have been approval or disgust. So let me get this straight. You've been struggling academically for months, spending your own money trying to fix it, while David here has been criticizing you for not being grateful enough for opportunities you're terrified you don't deserve. The silence that followed was deafening. Outside, a car door slammed. Through the window, I saw my neighbor's porch light flip on. Normal people, living normal lives, without trust funds and blended family drama destroying their Tuesday night. I think, Frank said slowly, we're all missing the point here. The point, Frank continued, settling deeper into my recliner, is that you're all so busy protecting yourselves that you've forgotten you're supposed to be a family. Frank, I don't think, Sarah started, but her father cut her off with a look. Sarah, you've been playing referee for 3 years instead of being honest with either of them about what you need. Tyler, you've been so afraid of failing that you'd rather push David away than accept help. And David. Frank's gray eyes fixed on me. You've been keeping a ledger instead of building a relationship. My phone buzzed again. This time it was a text from my business partner, Jim, heard about tonight from Carol. You okay, ? Christ. Carol must have called Jim's wife the moment she got home. By tomorrow, half the country club would know about my family's spectacular meltdown. How many people were at dinner tonight? I asked Sarah, dreading the answer. David, that's not what matters right now. 23, Tyler said flatly. 23 people watched you choose money over family. I didn't choose money. You literally called your lawyer to revoke my trust fund before dessert was served. Tyler's voice was getting stronger, angrier. And now you want to undo it because of tax implications. Because it makes you look bad. Frank held up a hand before I could respond. Tyler, what would you have done if David had offered to get you better tutoring instead of criticizing your grades? Tyler faltered. I would have taken it, I guess. You guess. Fine, yes. I would have taken it and been grateful, okay? But he didn't offer help. He just lectured me about responsibility and wasting opportunities. Sarah sat down heavily on the couch. Tyler, why didn't you tell me how bad things were? Because you were finally happy. The words came out in a rush. For the first time since Dad left, you were actually happy. You had David, you had this house, you felt secure. How was I supposed to tell you that I was screwing it all up? By screwing it up, you mean getting a C and struggling with calculus? Frank's voice was dry. By proving that David was right to be cautious about me from the beginning. Tyler looked directly at me. You never really trusted me, did you? The trust fund, the college support, it all came with conditions. Spoken or not. I wanted to deny it, but Frank's earlier words echoed in my head, keeping a ledger instead of building a relationship. The conditions were reasonable, I said finally. Good grades, responsible behavior. Define responsible behavior, Frank interrupted. Not partying every weekend. Not coming home drunk. Not treating this family like a hotel. He's 19, Frank said simply. Show me a 19-year-old who doesn't make those mistakes. I started, then stopped. Because I had done those things at 19. I'd just been lucky enough to have parents who could afford to clean up my messes without making me feel like a failure. My phone rang again. This time it was my mother. Don't answer it, Sarah said quickly. Too late. I could already imagine the conversation. My mother would have heard from someone who'd heard from someone else. She'd be calling to get the real story, or worse, to give me advice about managing my new family. This is exactly what I was afraid of, Tyler said, watching my phone screen. All these people judging us, talking about us. I never wanted to be your charity case, David. I never wanted to be the cautionary tale about blended families at your business dinners. You're not. Aren't I? Oh, David's doing such a good thing, taking on that boy. Too bad he's so ungrateful. The phone stopped ringing, then immediately started again. Frank stood up abruptly. Everyone, phones off. Now. We all stared at Frank like he'd suggested we burn the house down. Turn off our phones. In the middle of a crisis that was apparently spreading through our social circle like wildfire. I'm serious, Frank said, his voice carrying the authority of a man who'd run a construction company for 40 years. Every time one of those things rings, you all jump like guilty teenagers. Turn them off. My phone immediately rang again, as if summoned by his words. This time it was my lawyer's office number. That could be important, I said, reaching for it. More important than fixing your family. Frank's eyebrows rose. Because from where I sit, your family is about 10 minutes away from being permanently broken. Tyler was looking between Frank and me like he was watching a tennis match. Sarah had gone completely pale. David, she said quietly, maybe he's right. Maybe we should just focus on us for tonight. Easy to say when it's not your reputation being discussed at every dinner table in the county, I muttered, but I turned the phone to silent mode. Frank waited until both Sarah and Tyler had done the same. Better. Now, Tyler, I want you to tell David exactly what you told your mother last month about the trust fund. Tyler's head snapped toward Sarah. You told him. I tell my father everything, Sarah said defensively. I was worried about you, about us. I needed advice. What did he tell you? I asked, though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. Tyler looked like he'd rather be anywhere else on earth. It doesn't matter now. It matters to me, Frank said firmly. Tell him. Tyler's hands clenched in his lap. I told Mom that the trust fund felt like a leash. Like you were keeping me close enough to control, but not close enough to actually care about. The words hit me like a physical blow. That's not. I do care about you. When? When do you care about me and not about what I represent to other people? Tyler's voice was rising again. When you're bragging to your business partners about putting me through college. When you're explaining to your friends how generous you're being. When exactly do you care about Tyler, not about David's stepson? Frank was nodding like Tyler had just proven his point. And David, what did you tell Jim last month when he asked how the family situation was going? I felt my face flush. How the hell did Frank know about that conversation? Sarah overheard you on the phone, Frank explained, reading my expression. She was coming downstairs to get water. You were in your office with the door open. My mind raced, trying to remember what I'd said to Jim. It had been late, I'd been frustrated about Tyler's attitude, about feeling like an outsider in my own home. I might have said that blending families was more complicated than I'd expected, I admitted. What else? Frank's tone suggested he already knew. Sarah was staring at me with an expression I couldn't read. Tyler had gone very still. I might have mentioned that I was starting to wonder if I'd made a mistake. The silence that followed was suffocating. Tyler stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor. There it is, he said quietly. Finally. The truth. Tyler, wait. No, it's fine. Actually, it's better than fine. It's honest. Tyler's laugh was bitter. You think marrying Mom was a mistake, I think taking your money was a mistake. At least we agree on something. That's not what I meant. Isn't it? Tyler turned back to face me. Because from where I'm standing, it sounds like you've been having buyer's remorse for months. Frank cleared his throat. Sit down, Tyler. We're not done here. Actually, I think we are. No, we're not done, I said, my voice sharper than I intended. You don't get to storm out every time things get uncomfortable. That's exactly the kind of behavior that. That what? That proves you were right about me. Tyler whirled around, his face flushed. Go ahead, finish the sentence, David. Tell me how my reaction right now justifies everything you've been thinking for months. Frank stepped between us. Both of you, sit down. Now. Don't tell me what to do in my own house, I snapped, immediately regretting it when I saw Tyler's expression. Your house, Tyler repeated slowly. Right. Always comes back to that, doesn't it? Sarah finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. David, is it true? Do you think marrying me was a mistake? The question hung in the air like smoke. Frank was watching me with those sharp blue eyes, Tyler was standing frozen by the doorway, and Sarah looked like she was bracing for a blow. It's complicated, I said finally. Jesus Christ, David. Frank ran a hand through his gray hair. That's the worst possible answer you could have given. You want honesty? Fine. The words were coming out of me now like water through a broken dam. I thought I understood what I was signing up for. I thought I could handle being a stepfather, that I could win Tyler over with patience and generosity. I thought we'd become a real family. Tyler's jaw was clenched so tight I could see the muscles working. But instead, I continued, I've spent 3 years walking on eggshells, trying to prove myself worthy of acceptance from a kid who clearly resents my existence. I've been criticized for being too generous, too controlling, too distant, too involved. Nothing I do is right. So it is about keeping score, Sarah said, and I could hear the tears in her voice. Maybe it is. Maybe when you give someone everything, a home, security, a future, and they throw it back in your face, calling you pathetic in front of your friends and family, maybe you do start keeping score. Everything. Tyler's voice was dangerously quiet. You gave me everything. The trust fund, college tuition, this house. A father, David. I needed a father. Not a benefactor, not a sugar daddy for my mom, not someone who could write checks. I needed someone who gave a damn about me as a person. Frank sat down heavily. Tyler, what does that look like to you? What would David have to do to prove he cares about you as a person? Tyler was quiet for a long moment. Remember my birthday without Mom reminding you. Ask about my friends' names, not just my grades. Stop introducing me as your stepson like you need to explain why I'm there. His voice broke slightly. Act like you actually want me around instead of like you're fulfilling some obligation. Each word was a knife twist. Because he was right. I did introduce him as my stepson. I did focus more on his performance than his feelings. I had forgotten his birthday last year until Sarah mentioned it that morning. And what would you have to do differently? Frank asked Tyler. Tyler faltered. I don't know. Stop being such a disappointment, I guess. You're not a disappointment, I said automatically. Then why did you tell Jim that I was testing your patience and that you were starting to question the investment? My blood went cold. I had said that. Word for word. Sarah must have heard more than I thought. You called me an investment, Tyler continued, his voice hollow. To your business partner. Your golf buddy. I was just another portfolio decision that wasn't performing as expected. Frank was shaking his head. David, please tell me you didn't actually say that. But my silence was answer enough. The room felt like it was closing in on me. Tyler's face had gone completely blank, which somehow felt worse than when he'd been angry. Sarah was crying now, quiet tears that she wasn't bothering to wipe away. Frank looked like he was watching a car accident in slow motion. Tyler, I started, but he held up a hand. No. Just, no. He turned to Sarah. Mom, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that marrying him was apparently a mistake. I'm sorry that I've been such a bad investment. I'm sorry that trying to make this work has been such a burden on everyone. Tyler, that's not. It is, though. Tyler's voice was eerily calm now. David's right. I have been testing his patience. I have been ungrateful. Because somewhere deep down, I knew this was all conditional. I knew that if I screwed up enough, if I cost him too much money or embarrassment or effort, he'd cut his losses. Frank leaned forward. Son, that's not necessarily. Isn't it? Tyler looked at me directly. The second I said something that hurt your feelings, what was your first instinct? Call the lawyer. Protect your assets. Minimize your exposure. He paused. That's business language, David. Not family language. The worst part was that he was absolutely right. My first thought hadn't been about healing our relationship or understanding why he'd lashed out. It had been about protecting myself, about making sure he couldn't hurt me again. But you know what the really messed up part is? Tyler continued. I actually started to care about you. Not the money, not the opportunities, not the house. You. His voice cracked. I started to think maybe this could actually work. Maybe I could have a stepdad who actually wanted to be my stepdad. Sarah sobbed audibly. Tyler. When you taught me to drive stick shift in the Porsche, remember that? You were so patient, even when I nearly burned out the clutch. You said I was a natural. I thought about that for weeks. Tyler's eyes were bright with unshed tears. When I had that panic attack before my SATs, you sat with me for 3 hours and never once mentioned the money you'd spent on test prep. You just stayed. I did remember. Both incidents. I remembered feeling proud of him, feeling like maybe we were finally connecting. Those moments felt real, Tyler said. But now I'm wondering if you were just protecting your investment then too. They were real, I said hoarsely. Tyler, those moments were real. Then why didn't you fight for them? His voice broke completely now. When I said those horrible things at dinner, why didn't you get angry like a real father would? Why didn't you ground me or lecture me or make me apologize? Why was your first instinct to cut me out completely? Frank cleared his throat gently. David, he's asking a fair question. I stared at Tyler, this kid who I'd lived with for 3 years but apparently never really understood. Because, I said slowly, I was terrified that you were right. That I was pathetic. That I was just some middle-aged man trying to buy a family because I couldn't build one naturally. The admission hung in the air like a confession. Jesus, David, Frank muttered. Sarah looked up from her hands. You thought you couldn't build a family naturally? I'm 45 years old. I'd never been married, never had kids. When I met you, Sarah, you seemed so perfect, and Tyler seemed so complete. Like you didn't need anything from me except money. I felt exposed, raw. I didn't know how to be anything else. So you became a checkbook, Tyler said quietly. I became what I thought you needed. What we needed was you, David. Just you. The silence that followed Sarah's words was deafening. I wanted to believe her, but 3 years of evidence suggested otherwise. If that's true, I said slowly, then why did you never correct me? Why didn't you tell me I was doing it wrong? Sarah's face crumpled. Because I was terrified too. You were so generous, so willing to help, and we needed that help so desperately. Tyler's father left us with nothing but debt and broken promises. So you let me think money was enough, I said, the pieces clicking into place. I thought if you felt needed, if you could see how much you were helping us, the emotional connection would come naturally. I was afraid if I pushed too hard for more, you'd realize we were just baggage. Tyler let out a bitter laugh. So we were all just pretending. Perfect. This is like some twisted psychology experiment. Frank shifted uncomfortably. Maybe we should take a break. No, Tyler said firmly. We're finally being honest. Let's keep going. He turned back to me. You want to know why I really called you pathetic? Because I heard you on the phone with Mom's friend Janet 2 weeks ago. Sarah's head snapped up. What phone call? My stomach dropped. I knew exactly which conversation he meant. He was telling Janet how frustrated he was that I didn't appreciate everything he'd done for us. How he'd given me opportunities his own father never gave him, but I was still emotionally distant. Tyler's voice was getting stronger, angrier. He said he was starting to wonder if some kids were just genetically incapable of gratitude. The blood drained from Sarah's face. David, please tell me you didn't say that. I had said it. Word for word. I'd been venting to Janet after Tyler had forgotten to thank me for getting him into an exclusive internship program. It had seemed so reasonable at the time, but hearing it repeated now. Genetically incapable. Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. You were talking about his father. About his father's genes. Tyler nodded grimly. Yeah, Mom. Apparently I'm doomed to be an ungrateful deadbeat because of Dad's DNA. Frank winced. Oh, David. No. I didn't mean it like that, I said desperately. I was trying to understand why nothing I did seemed to matter to you. Because you never asked me what mattered to me. Tyler exploded. You decided what I should want, what I should be grateful for, what my problems were, and then you solved those problems whether I wanted you to or not. I was trying to be helpful. You were trying to be right. There's a difference. Sarah stood up abruptly. I need some air. She headed for the back door, then stopped. You know what the worst part is? Both of you have been keeping score this whole time, but you've been playing completely different games. She looked at me with something that might have been disappointment or might have been pity. David, you've been playing how to win Tyler's love with perfect stepdad moves. Tyler, you've been playing how to prove David will abandon me like Dad did. Tyler flinched. That's not. Isn't it? You've been testing him from day one, pushing boundaries, seeing how much he'd tolerate before he gave up on you. And David, you've been so focused on not giving him reasons to reject you that you never gave him reasons to accept you. Frank nodded slowly. She's right. You've both been so afraid of losing each other that you never actually tried to find each other. Sarah wiped her eyes. Meanwhile, I've been playing referee and enabler, too scared to lose David's support and too guilty about Tyler's pain to make either of you face the truth. She looked between us with something that looked like exhaustion. We're all broken, and we've been breaking each other worse. With that, she walked outside, leaving the three of us in a silence that felt heavier than before. The back door clicked shut behind Sarah, and the silence stretched until it became unbearable. Frank cleared his throat and stood up. I think you two need to talk without an audience, he said quietly. I'll go check on your wife, David. She shouldn't be alone right now. Tyler and I watched him leave, and suddenly the kitchen felt enormous and suffocating at the same time. My stepson sat across from me, no longer the angry young man from 10 minutes ago, but he wasn't the grateful kid I'd imagined either. He was something else entirely, someone I was realizing I'd never actually met. The internship, Tyler said finally. At Morrison & Associates. You never asked if I wanted it. I frowned. It's a prestigious firm. Most kids would kill for that opportunity. Most kids aren't planning to major in environmental science. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? I changed my major 3 months ago. From business to environmental science. I've been trying to figure out how to tell you. Tyler's voice was steady, but his hands were shaking slightly. The internship you got me? It's at a firm that primarily represents oil companies fighting EPA regulations. I stared at him. But, your business courses. You were doing well in them. I was doing well because I thought that's what you wanted. What you expected. He looked down at his hands. Do you even know what I actually want to do with my life? The honest answer was no. I realized I'd never asked. I'd assumed he'd want to follow in my footsteps, maybe join my company eventually. The trust fund, the business internships, even the college I'd helped him choose, it had all been designed around a future I'd planned for him. Tell me, I said quietly. Tyler looked surprised, like he'd been expecting me to argue. I want to work in conservation. Maybe for the National Park Service, or one of the environmental nonprofits. I want to spend my time protecting things instead of just accumulating them. Each word felt like an indictment of everything I'd built my life around. That doesn't pay very well. And there it is, Tyler said, but not angrily. He sounded almost sad. That's your first concern. Not whether I'd be happy, not whether I'd be good at it. The money. That's not fair. I just want you to be secure. To have options. Your options, David. You want me to have your options. Tyler leaned forward. When's the last time you did something that didn't make financial sense but made you happy? The question caught me off guard. I tried to think of an example and came up empty. That's different. I have responsibilities. To who? To what? Tyler's eyes were intense now, searching. When you married Mom, what made you happy about it? The tax benefits? Of course not. I love your mother. Why? The simple question somehow felt impossible to answer. Why did I love Sarah? I scrambled for words that didn't involve how well she managed the household, or how gracefully she handled social obligations, or how she'd never made unreasonable demands on my time or money. Tyler watched me struggle and something shifted in his expression. You don't know, do you? You don't know how to think about relationships outside of cost-benefit analysis. That's not true. Then tell me about the last time you talked to Mom about something that wasn't logistics. Not schedules or budgets or plans. When's the last time you asked her about her dreams, or her fears, or what makes her feel alive? I opened my mouth to answer and realized I couldn't. Every conversation I could remember was about practical matters, Tyler's school, household expenses, social obligations, vacation planning. Even our intimate moments felt somehow transactional, like I was paying attention to her because that's what good husbands do. Oh God, I whispered. I don't know how to love people. Tyler's anger seemed to drain away, replaced by something that looked almost like pity. No, David. You don't. Outside, I could hear Sarah crying and Frank's voice, low and comforting. The sound made my chest ache with something I couldn't name. Can it be learned? I asked. Is it something you can figure out, or are some people just broken? Tyler was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was gentler than it had been all evening. I honestly don't know. The admission hung between us like a bridge neither of us knew how to cross. Tyler looked exhausted, and I felt something crumbling inside my chest, not just my pride or my plans, but something deeper. The foundation I'd built my entire adult life on. I need to tell you something, I said, my voice barely steady. About why I started that trust fund. Tyler waited. My father never gave me anything. Not money, not approval, not even basic acknowledgement. When he died, I inherited his business, but I'd already earned every dollar in it twice over just trying to get him to notice me. The words felt foreign in my mouth. I swore when I met you and your mother that I'd be different. That I'd give you everything he never gave me. But you never asked what I actually needed. No. I gave you what I'd wanted at 19. I looked at my hands, seeing them clearly for the first time in years. I turned you into a project to fix my own childhood. Tyler nodded slowly. And I turned you into my dad. Every time you tried to help, I saw him walking away again. The back door opened, and Sarah came in with Frank behind her. Her eyes were red, but she looked calmer. She glanced between Tyler and me, noting something different in the air. We figured something out, Tyler said. We're both pretty screwed up. Sarah almost smiled. That's progress. I stood up, my legs unsteady. Sarah, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. When I revoked Tyler's trust fund, were you upset about losing me or losing my money? She blinked, clearly not expecting the question. Both, initially. But David, by the time I got to Frank's, I was just scared of losing our family. All of us together. Even if that family is built on me trying to buy love and Tyler testing whether I'll stay. Especially then, she said firmly. Because at least now we know what we're working with. Frank cleared his throat. If I may make a suggestion. You all need to start over. Not the relationships, but the expectations. I looked at Tyler. I want to reinstate the trust fund, but differently. Not for business school or internships I pick. For whatever you want to do with your life, even if I don't understand it. I don't want your money to chase my dreams, David. I want to earn that myself. The rejection should have stung, but instead I felt something like relief. Then what do you want from me? Tyler thought for a moment. I want you to ask me questions about things that aren't practical. I want you to care about my answers even when they're not the ones you choose. And I want to stop punishing you for not being perfect. I nodded. I want to learn how to have a relationship with you that isn't a performance evaluation. Sarah was crying again, but quietly. And I want us to talk to each other instead of around each other. Family therapy, Frank said. All of you. Not to fix anyone, but to learn how to be together without keeping score. I looked around the kitchen, at Tyler, who was finally looking back at me without armor, at Sarah, who was allowing herself to hope, at Frank, who'd somehow guided us through the wreckage. The trust fund stays revoked for now, I said. Not as punishment, but because we need to build something real before we add money to it. Tyler smiled, and for the first time since I'd known him, it looked genuine. I can live with that. For the first time in my adult life, so could I.